I went out on this thin ice, and of course I went through the thin ice. I submerged completely under the water, and then it just felt like hands came from underneath and pushed me up out of the water.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide, and we see God, we see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer, deeper relationship. Here we share the stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, near-death experiences, visions, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. I did it as a kid. You did too. Then your kids did it. Everyone does it. It's fun. It's a fun thing to do. You kind of plot it. You kind of play in your moment. You're in the car. You're in the back seat. Mom and dad up front. You're going somewhere. Going to be on a big long trip, right? You just barely pull out of the garage, and then you pipe up with, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" You know, you did it. They did it. Everybody does it, right? Wonderfully irritating, isn't it? Yes. How about in faith? Are you there yet? Are you there? I mean, are you there? When do you know if you're there? Some people seem to be there a little faster. Well, other people behind you. Are you there yet? Are you on the road? Are you going deeper with Christ? Or are you going wider, broader? I am a spiritual human being. I'm just out there with an open mind, and anything can fall in, and sometimes does. Otherwise known as being a tumbleweed. I was a tumbleweed. You ever a tumbleweed? Wherever it takes me, right? Are you surprised by where your faith has taken you? The journey to get to where you are right now. Interesting, isn't it? Such is the case for Rachel Jacques. She lives in Nova Scotia. She's going to be our guest today. She's been on quite a ride. Starting out Christian, and then anti-Christian, and then how about Jewish faith? Maybe. And then I know I don't want to be Catholic, and then do I want to be a Catholic? And then she has this dream with Jesus' mom, and it's like, well, that seems to kind of put me in a certain direction. It's just been this fascinating, most interesting faith journey. Faith is a surprise, a constant set of surprises. But as long as we're with Jesus, because He is the way, the truth, and the life, and as long as we're seeking Him, He will take us to the truth, which is Him. So let's get underway with Rachel Jacques here on Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Anybody home?
Yeah. Hi.
How are you? You know how we talk here about we are in conversation with God, sometimes whether we know it or not. God says things, He tries to get our attention, and then He waits for a response, and there's a conversation. Sometimes we're oblivious. We don't have our antenna set just right to understand that. That's true with Rachel. A lot of things went on early in Rachel's life. God, sending out shooting the flare gun, trying to get the attention, right? That would then come back later to help guide Rachel that there is a God, that He is in conversation, right? Well, before we get to Rachel and her journey, if you will, and the decisions do I go this way or that way, God was indeed trying to get her attention, creating some memories early on in her life, letting her know that He was there.
I think it was when I was 5, I was playing with a friend, and she dared me to go out on this thin ice, which was so smart. And I went out on this thin ice, and of course I went through the thin ice, and I submerged completely under the water. And I remember looking up and seeing the ice and the water, and then it just felt like hands came from underneath and pushed me up out of the water, but I didn't see anything. And I just felt like something was pushing me out of the water, but I didn't see anything. And my friend had ran into the house to tell my mom that I had drowned. So my mom came running out, and my brother came out with a cape on and sword, saying he would save me. I remember that. And my mom said, how did you get out of the water? And I was like, oh, an angel helped me. And I didn't see anything. And I don't know why I said that, but I did. So
I think you spoke the truth. I think an angel, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is so cool. You hear those experiences all the time of a hand grabbing you and pulling you out, or hands underneath pushing you out. And we've had episodes where we've certainly had those experiences where angels, without question. Go to episode 25. You want to hear a doozy about hands in the ocean A guy Jeff was about to drown, and he felt huge hands, a hand on him, the right hand, and pushed him from about 100 feet out, drowning, to on the beach in a couple of seconds. It's an amazing story, great story. So I have no doubt an angel to the rescue for you.
Yeah. So,
actually, Rachel's first experience was before she was even born.
My mom was pregnant with me for 5 months pregnant, and she was in the kitchen praying. I have 2 older brothers, but they were quite young at the time. I think one would have been 3 and the other one would have been 2. And she was 5 months pregnant with me, and she heard a voice inside of her that said, "Stop, go outside, your children are in danger." And my mom, my parents had a house that was close to water, and she got up and went outside, and she found my 2 brothers at the end of a pier looking over at the ocean. And she's like, if I hadn't have stopped and gone out, goodness knows what could have happened to them.
Then there was the time when Rachel was 6 years old, and she had this lump on her shoulder.
Had that removed.
But they couldn't get it all because it had roots.
It was just growing quite rapidly, and they were going to remove muscle from my arm, which my mom said would have left my arm just kind of hanging by my side. I wouldn't have full use of my arm.
Rachel's mom then took her to a healing service in Nova Scotia.
A man approached my mom, and he said, your daughter's not well. And she started to cry, and I was like, what? I'm not well? This is news to me. And so he prayed over me and laid his hands on me. And when I went for a follow-up appointment before my 3rd surgery, the surgeon said, "I don't know what's happened, but it's mysteriously disappeared." And my mom said, "That's Jesus."
Yep. No question God touched you.
Yeah. So, and it never came back.
Now, with all this as the backdrop, because this all happens very early, obviously. Before Rachel is born, she's hearing about what happened. When she was 5, she remembers falling into that icy water and being pushed up. At age 6, the shoulder and the healing service and all of that. But now, we get older, and now it's our own faith journey. It's not just what Mom says, it's what do I think, right? And for Rachel, it's been a very difficult, challenging time.
So I think I was always really searching for God. I never felt like I really fit in with Christianity, though. And I just found most of the Christians I had met to be very judgmental, hypocritical, sanctimonious types.
I should also mention that you're going to hear different qualities of phone line. We started with Skype, that fell apart. We go to cell phone, we go to FaceTime. We were kind of bouncing around trying to get the best quality to hear Rachel's story.
Yeah, no, I was raised Anglican, actually, and then I just fell away from Christianity in general, probably in my early 20s to early 30s. I was basically told that Catholics were idol worshippers, that they worshipped Mary, that they had strange rituals. And so I had no interest in Catholicism.
And she began developing a very empathetic ear towards the country of Israel and Judaism.
I was studying Judaism in my early 30s with an Orthodox rabbi. So I had always had an interest in the Jews in Israel. And at a young age, I had found out about the Holocaust. And it really impacted me. And it was in 2004, I went over to Israel, and I volunteered with the Israeli Defense Forces for 3 weeks. It was just on an artillery base.
Yes, an artillery base where she did what she called grunt work.
Cleaning jerry cans and
Jerry cans? What is it?
Yeah, jerry cans. It's just like water jugs.
Oh, okay.
Preparing things for soldiers, like blankets and that sort of thing. So I wasn't out shooting guns or anything like that.
In some way, shape, or form, you wanted to help.
Yeah, exactly.
After her 3 weeks in Israel, she's more fired up than ever. She wants to learn Hebrew. She wants to learn more about the faith.
One of the things I had read in some book is one thing you can do for the Jewish people is convert to Judaism and maybe eventually relocate. I wasn't sure, but I wasn't fulfilled with Christianity. I felt like I had nothing to lose. I studied with a rabbi for two years. And then it was getting close to the time when I would be doing a conversion to Judaism. And my mom was freaking out because she's like, you can't deny Jesus. And because you have to go in front of, I can't remember what they're called, but it's almost like a committee, and you would have to renounce your former faith and proclaim like Judaism, and that would include denying Christ. There's only 5 books in the Torah, and so I wanted to read more than just what was in the Torah. And
Rachel begins reading the book of Isaiah.
Started in Isaiah 52, where it starts describing what appeared to me to be Mary, and her giving birth to Jesus. And then in 53, it described Jesus 100%. And I was like, hold on, like, this is Jesus that they're describing. And I went to my rabbi about my questions with Isaiah 53, and he said, well, this is a very problematic book in the Jewish Bible. He's like, but you were reading a Christian interpretation, and the Jewish interpretation is quite different. And I did my research like as much as I could online without being completely fluent in Hebrew. And from what I could see, it was still like, regardless of how you worded it, young woman or virgin, it was Mary that they were describing in Jesus and the trial of his passion. I couldn't convert to Judaism if there was any possibility that Jesus was actually the Messiah.
Yeah, they're not encouraged to read Isaiah, as I understand it. The Jewish people are not encouraged to read Isaiah.
I don't think so.
So back she comes to Christianity. Take a look-see. What does she want to do? And she decides on Catholicism.
Then I came into the church at the Easter Vigil of 2010.
That was from one, boy, talk about from one extreme to another. There.
I know.
That's pretty cool.
I know.
When you came aboard,
yes.
Did you get any signs at that point that you were on the right path? As we look at these, touched by heaven moments, sometimes we don't see them because we blow things off as coincidence, and as I certainly did for most of my life. Then I finally went, oh, that's not that was like a sign. Okay. Anything for you?
So after I joined the church, I wasn't really familiar with adoration of the Holy Eucharist. I didn't understand it fully.
Now, here at Touched by Heaven, we have absolutely no doubt that the Holy Eucharist is Jesus Christ, 100%. Beyond faith, there's just too much science, and we've had different episodes talk about that, how every time at consecration when a Eucharistic miracle happens and the bread actually turns fleshy and they stop things and go, what is this? And every time a piece of that Eucharist is sent off to a scientific lab with no explanation other than tell us what this is. And every time it comes back with the lab report from scientists saying, well, you have human DNA. You have a piece of somebody's heart. It's always the heart. And it's always the left ventricle. And it's always type AB blood. And sometimes there's even white blood cells, meaning it's a fresh sample. We We have no doubt whatsoever. So when she was mentioning, if you're not aware, during adoration, and that is the Eucharist is actually exposed, you're basically going to go and sit with Jesus for a little while and whatever comes of that. There's the concept of you look at Jesus and Jesus looks at you, and sometimes things happen. The Eucharist is placed into what's called a monstrance, and sometimes, as she's about to explain, if it's a special service, sometimes the priest will come around with the monstrance and just stand in front of the individual. And that's what she is about to describe, what Rachel is about to describe, a particular moment.
I knew that the Eucharist is like the body of Christ. And I knew when taking the Eucharist, I was ingesting the body of Christ. But there was still a bit of a disconnect, I guess, where the whole supernatural, mysterious experience of the wafer turning into the body of Christ, I didn't.
Or sitting with, kind of spending time with Jesus in the Eucharist form. Yeah, that concept of just sitting there with him. Yeah. So did something happen during Eucharistic adoration?
Yes. Yeah. And I had no idea what was going on. So there's a ministry. It's called Bridge Ministry. It happens on, I think, the first Friday of each month, and it's just like a time of like quiet praise and worship. And then they take out the Eucharist in the monstrance and bring it around the church to have like a more like intimate face-to-face, I guess. And when the priest had come to facing me, the monstrance, like, or whatever was holding the Eucharist, just started to shake.
It began to shake?
Yeah, or it was just rattling. It was rattling, I guess. Like, and I thought, oh, the poor man, like his arms are probably tired. Is what I thought. And so I tried to steady his hands because I thought he was shaking. I didn't realize that there was something more supernatural, I guess, happening. And then I felt this incredible heat coming off of the Eucharist. And then I just started to cry, like just pour out of me, like just a very, I wasn't like heaving or gasping for air. I just like, I don't know, like a purifying cry, but I like just couldn't stop the tears from coming out. And I wasn't sad or upset about anything, and then a message came to me, like an internal message. I didn't hear anything. And it just said, pray for the souls in purgatory. And that was also another thing that was completely new concept to me, where it was purgatory and that there are any souls there. So
when you studied the priest's hands, I assume you found out they weren't shaking.
Yeah. So I just didn't understand. And when I told the priest of the parish, Father Mark, afterwards, I was like, I don't know what happened. And I was like, the man holding the thing, he was shaking and I didn't know what to do. And I felt like maybe his arms needed a break. And he's like, oh no, he's like, he wasn't shaking it. That happens. And I didn't realize that was something that could happen.
You're hearing the rattling, assuming that the whole thing is shaking. You touch his hands.
Yeah.
Nothing is being shaken. So it's all coming.
Yeah.
It's the host. It's the host in there saying hi.
Yeah.
It's Jesus saying hi, basically.
Oh,
Jesus
wow.
saying hi. And then you began feeling this heat, began to cry.
Yeah.
The cleansing is going on. There's something going on. You're being touched.
Yeah.
And then this message of pray for the souls in purgatory, new concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. All very powerful stuff. That's all very real powerful stuff. Yeah.
Then another thing that had happened was I had done a Marian consecration with the Father, is his name Tom Gately?
It's funny you bring that up. Is it Mike?
33.
Mike Gately? Mike?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
33.
my wife is doing it right now. She just began, and 33 days of
to morning glory.
To morning glory, and it's consecrating to. Oh, you did that to Mary.
So I did, and I did it, but I wasn't 100% sure when I did the program, and I had something that happened. I had a dream, and it was very, very brief. And in the dream, I saw a woman, and she was in a long white gown, almost like a seamless gown. She just had like a simple crown on, but she had like a red velvet like cape with fur trim. She was this tiny little Jewish woman. I don't know how else to describe her. Just a tiny little, I would say she was 5'2", if that. And she had dark brown, long hair, dark brown eyes, olive complexion. Nothing like the Marys that I've seen in art. And she had these sparkling eyes, smiling eyes. And when I saw her, like, almost my reaction to her was like someone who sees a celebrity that they adore. And I was just like, oh my gosh, is that really you? Is that you, Mary? Is that you, Mary? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then I just started saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. I couldn't stop saying it. It was about the only thing to say. And her reaction to me, she laughed.
Oh, let's go back to that. You were cutting out again. So what was her reaction to you?
So
interesting that this is around the time when I was really having trouble with the Skype call and it's falling apart. So then we went to a cell call and then we went to FaceTime just to get this entire dream. And it was during this moment that it just felt like was somebody working against us in getting this out about this Mary dream, there is a theory that Mary bothers Satan even more than Jesus does, for the simple reason that she's one of us. If you understand.
Wow.
She's one of us, and she's the one that's always depicted stepping on the head of the serpent, and she's the one of us that said yes to God, that Jesus be, in the womb, conceived in her womb. So she is also the one who, like Jesus, conquered sin. She never sinned. And she was conceived immaculately. And so in some ways, because she's one of us and did all of that, they have a bigger problem with Mary than sometimes even Jesus, because that they understand. There's the Son of God as well as man. But there's something about Mary that really ticks them off. So I think that may be part of the issue here as we hear your story.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How much did you hear me?
You said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then her response was kind of joy. She was just laughing at your joy, I take.
Yeah. And I can't really describe, it's hard to describe her voice. I mean, everything's so vivid, like in my head, but to put it into words, it's really difficult. And the thing is like, she looked like royalty, yet she was just completely humble. It was bizarre. Like there were no airs about her. She was just joy. She was just joy, like just joy and love and peace that was radiating from her. And when I was saying, I love you, and what she said back to me was, I love you too. I have loved you longer than you know. And I thought that was odd. And just for her to say, I have loved you longer than you know. And I don't know if it's because for such a long time I was scared to have any sort of love or adoration for Mary, because I was always told, like, that she was just a nice person who gave birth to Jesus, basically.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about it, like, if someone's carrying the Messiah, they have to be pretty epic. If someone's carrying the Son of God, they have to be a little more than just a nice, special person. So
well said. Yeah, she's not just a vessel through whom Jesus came through. Yeah, she was chosen.
Another thing about the dream that I didn't understand up until recently was the location where we were meeting, because it was a very distinct location. And it was in a grotto or a cave. And after listening to your podcast the other day, I don't know a lot about Guadalupe. And so I went on YouTube and I was looking at a video or a documentary on Guadalupe, the Our Lady of Guadalupe. And then it went into Lourdes afterwards. And there's this grotto, and it's very similar to the grotto that was in my dream. So I don't know if the location had some affiliation or link there, but
interesting.
I have no idea. I was just after, like, when I thought about it, I was like, why were we in a cave? Why were we in a grotto? Like, and I was just like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. When I woke up from my dream, I just couldn't stop smiling. And I woke up and I was like, wow, I met Mary. And so I told my priest, Father Mark, about the dream, and he felt that it was, one that was divine. I mean, I don't know 100% if just the peace and the joy I felt. I'd like to believe that it was something supernatural, but it could have just been a dream. I don't know for certain.
Take the word coincidence and throw it out.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. Is that I have no doubt Mary came to you. I have no doubt. And especially at a time when you were questioning who she was. And so God, God in his mercy, he's going to help you get there.
Yeah, and I don't think I'll ever forget that dream. What made her so beautiful was just the joy and peace and happiness. And she was very human in the dream. I don't know how else to describe her. And motherly. And I would say, if I had to guess her age, she was like, I'd say between 25 and 27. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It could have even been 30. I don't know. She was a young 30, though. if she was 30.
Those heavenly facelifts, that'll help you out.
Yeah.
That's cool. No, that is very cool. That's a cool experience. That's a very cool experience. But and the Lourdes connection I find very intriguing, because I don't know if she wanted you to know the Bernadette story, because there's a 14-year-old girl who she appeared to, and once again, the whole thing about Bernadette is just how she followed. It was like, dig there, and up come the water, the springs, the healing springs, and all that. So I wonder if there's something there, and just follow me. There's something about Mary. What a great name for a movie. There's just something about Mary that will take you to Jesus in a very special way. And okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
did you hear the podcast about the miracle medals?
Yes.
Get yourself a miracle medal. Get yourself a miracle.
I do. I have one. I'm wearing it right now.
Oh, looky. Is that what I'm hearing?
Maybe.
Yeah. Have you worn it a long time?
I have.
Okay.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Mary's guiding you, and just follow that. Just follow her, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
That sounds good to me. That's great. I hope I can lift someone up or do something for someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you so much for this.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you.
You too.
Take care.
You too.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel Jacques here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. Takeaways today. I always find it interesting when God does things early on in our lives to get our attention, because I think he knows. I know he knows. He knows. He's God. He knows all, right? He knows the challenges we're going to be up against. So in Rachel's case, to give her those early experiences of, falling through the ice or being healed, by prayer, whatever that growth was on the shoulder and all that, those early experiences to say, I'm here. Because we need those things later on when we hit those challenges, to see those preconceived notions of Rachel. And a lot of people, just the preconceived notions of those Christians, those hypocrites, those sinners. Yeah, we sure are, aren't we? We sure are. Her love for Israel, the Jewish people, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But then there's Isaiah. Isaiah is such a light to so many people and brings so many people to Christ. And then to re-examine different faiths. I've said before, we're not a Catholic podcast. I'm Catholic, but we're not a Catholic podcast. God will meet us wherever we are. He wants a personal relationship. Above all, above everything, he wants that personal relationship, and he will meet us where we are when we seek him. And then we go not wider, we go deeper with Christ. We're not a tumbleweed. We're supposed to have roots. We're not a tumbleweed just blowing wherever the wind blows. Wherever society says we're supposed to go, we are to go deep with Jesus. He is the way, the truth, the life. And so there's Rachel and her story. What's yours? What is your story? I'd love to hear your story. If you have, you do. You do? Oh, good. Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net, touchedbyheaven.net, or my email address is trapper@blindguymedia.com, trapper@blindguymedia.com. Either way, it'll get to me, and I'll get back to you. All right? Thanks for sharing these episodes. They fortify the faith, don't they? That's the idea. They fortify the faith. Oh, another reason to go to touchedbyheaven.net is to see where I'll be speaking. A lot of speaking engagements during this Lenten season here in the Cleveland area. Got St. Leo the Great. We've got, Guardian Angels in Copley. We have Little Italy's Holy Rosary Church, and we're going to be at Our Lady of Guadalupe in Macedonia. So if you're in the Cleveland area, lots of events to come out and say hi. I want to meet you and listen to the hour-long talk, okay? Go to touchedbyheaven.net. This is episode 50, and you'll see some information there. Thank you so much. All right, see you next week on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.